It's not often, or as many times as I might be amazed at the guests that we have on this show. I'm particularly amazed about this one. I'm totally honored here to be joined by Chris Noel. Chris is a model turned actress in the 1960s. Went to Vietnam, entertained the troops, and a long historic career there. Was a DJ in Saigon, was entertaining live, was entertaining on location in Vietnam and fire bases, came back, continued her acting career and the ups and downs of that, and just a legend. I am so honored today to be joined by Chris, who is with us. And Chris, how are you, my dear? I understand you had quite a weekend.
Yes, I did, Tony. In Washington, D.C., I was one of the MCs for Rolling Thunder, and that's over like 300,000 bikers that meet in the Pentagon parking lot, and then we all go across the Memorial Bridge into D.C. and go up all around the reflecting pools, and then come back, and then on Sunday we have this big show that goes on for hours in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and it was lots of fun.
And when you go to the Rolling Thunder events, and I understand you do attend them annually, how many guys come up to you and say, "Hey, I saw you at location A or B in Vietnam," and give you a story? And how many of them may you even remember?
Oh, I don't remember, and then all of a sudden something will click, and I'll go, "Oh my gosh, I remember her now." I mean, it's like me. I forget so much stuff,
Yeah.
So it's like that, but then, they're also very reserved. They have a tendency to look at me from afar and just kind of sort of stare at me.
Well,
Which is kind of weird.
Well, you were that figure on the stage, or that voice on the radio, and you were that reminder of all the things that were back home, and while they were in the midst of some serious things, and you had stood there for them. And to me that would be quite understandable. But did you grow up in Florida or California?
I grew up in Florida.
I see. And
I'm a Florida cracker.
Ah, okay. And what
I grew up in my hometown, and I came back to my hometown.
I
It's
understand.
a great place to live.
And what town is that in Florida? What city?
It's West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach. And what brought you west? Did someone see your modeling and think you'd be really good to have in movies and television?
Oh, you mean when I went to California?
Yeah, for the first time.
No, I went to California, and I took the opportunity to call up agents and make appointments with them to go see them. Then I got an agent, and he sent me on interviews, and I was very fortunate. I was in Hollywood at the right time for me. It was when they liked the girls that looked like I do, with the blonde hair, and they were doing beach movies, and I co-starred with Cookie Burns in Beach Ball, and then with Elvis and Girl Happy, and my first film in Hollywood was opposite Steve McQueen, and Soldier in the Rain.
Yeah,
with Jackie Gleason.
And I have a story about that, because I'm from Stamford, Connecticut, so I'm from the cold climate. But my father ran movies in Stamford for many years, and one of the first movies that I must have been about, I'm going to say 8 or 9 years old, that I could remember actually sitting and watching from beginning to end and understanding it was Soldier in the Rain. It was, as you know, it was in black and white because it sort of had somber overtones to it. and it was sort of a dark, tragic comedy, but yet it really showed the. I'm a huge Jackie Gleason fan as far as watching him through the years, and just really showed to me a lot of his versatility. It's a movie you don't see a lot of today or hear a lot of today. What was it like working with Steve and Jackie?
They didn't get along too good.
No kidding. No kidding.
It's very interesting because one would say, he would go, Jackie on the set, yeah. No, well, I'm not going until Jackie gets on the set. And Jackie says, is McQueen on the set yet? He's not on the set? Well, I'm not going until he gets on the set. So,
holy cow.
I went on for a while.
Wow.
And, I mean, it was just, I don't know what the real problem was between the two of them, because Steve didn't tell me. About one night we sat and had dinner with Jackie, Steve and myself and Jackie Gleason, and it seemed to have been okay that evening, but they had their little conflict.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, you know, Gleason, who at that time was the great one, who played all of those characters on his show. You know, the man had some kind of whatever you want to call it. He was just such a consummate performer in so many ways, but yet he might have thought that you know, he was the great one. In many ways, he was. So, what are you going to say about that? What did you find in working with Elvis Presley? What was that like?
I just thought he was just so fabulous. He was so good looking. He was such a good actor. He always knew his lines. He never fluffed up. He had it together. And he was always pulling little jokes and stuff to make people laugh. He had a great sense of humor.
You know, and we've had people on the show who have worked with him, and they all say the same thing. Just a consummate gentleman, very respectful, very kind-hearted, very considerate. It's just a shame that, you know, we had to lose him at such a young age. He was just such a great singer. And I loved his movies because my father would pick up extra work at the drive-in. And of course, the staple for any drive-in was, if I wasn't watching you, I was watching Elvis, you know. So it was, that was, you know, drive-ins were about Elvis movies. But man, oh man, that's just, you know, for one person to say that they worked with Jackie Gleason and Elvis Presley it's quite a story. Now, your path to Vietnam, I understand, was perhaps accidental. I mean, you didn't. This sort of came about by a visit you had made to a hospital.
Oh, yes, in '65, I worked with the governor of California and Sandy Koufax and some other stars to the gangrene ward, a double and triple amputees. And we had to wash up to go in, and I happened to have been the first person to walk in the doors, and boy, they were not going to happen. They just didn't even want to know about us. I mean, can you just imagine losing half of your body and you're there with all these other people who have the same problem? It was very hard. And then all of a sudden in the back, one of the young patients lifted up his one arm and goes, Sandy, Koufax, throw me the ball. And Sandy gave him a little pitch, and of course he knew he was right on. And he caught the ball, and everybody started laughing. And that taught me something. It taught me how you can, when you just show that you care, how you can really affect people's lives. So when I went outside and we were walking down the hallway, Sandy was in front of me with tears in his eyes, and I was just numb. And I sort of made a vow. It's like, help me to find some way to help all these men in war. I say men because it was the men that were fighting. And so within a very short time, I was auditioning for a radio show. The next thing we knew, I got the radio show and became the first woman since World War II to broadcast on Armed Forces Radio, which goes all over the free world. And so that was really quite wonderful. And I learned, each day I learned something new, and I got good. And then I had wanted to go with Bob Hope to Vietnam, but they were already filled up. So a telegram came in from the Pentagon asking if Chris Noel would volunteer to go to Vietnam to cheer up the troops. It was perfect. It's exactly what I wanted.
Wow.
It was amazing, you know, how that happened. It was amazing. Amazing. Because there was just no way that some Hollywood actress could just go over to Vietnam. And I went by myself each time, and I had an escort officer that would meet me at the plane, and he would stay with me throughout all of our trips, all throughout South Vietnam, everywhere that we went. And it was an amazing life. I'm so happy I had that life experience.
And I can, you know, I mean, I can only imagine as far as the amount of appearances, radio shows, I can only imagine how you felt, the discouragement you might have felt from day to day, how tired you might have been, but just thinking, I got to do this for these guys that are, you know, really, really looking forward to, because as you said, it's showing people that you care. And you know, where you have my admiration, you know, continually and eternally from doing that. And I do understand that you were actually doing helicopter shows. You were flying out to fire bases and making appearances, and at one point you were shot down?
Well, yes. Another time we went down, the hydraulic system went out, and we just went straight down. And when that happens, you just hope and pray that it doesn't tilt over, because if it tilts over on a rotor blade, you know, that's not good.
No, not for sure. And you know, you had actually done the bigger shows with other performers, and you don't have to mention names if you don't want to, but the people that you were performing with during that time, what was their attitude and demeanor like? You know, how did they brave the elements, so to speak? Were they happy to be there? Did they complain? Were they really excited? Were they tired? Were they grumpy? I can imagine it just must have been the gamut of emotions.
Anybody who's ever with me better have a good attitude. And one day, I one day went, Bob Hope was in the same area, and they asked me if I wanted to go and be on Bob's show, and I went, okay, because I had been on several of his shows in Hollywood. And so I was sitting in the tent, and all these actresses and singers, they were all complaining.
Wow.
You've got to cut my hair. This is terrible. Look at my hair. This heat is just killing my hair. It was just going on. And finally, one time I just stood up and I said, you all should be ashamed of yourself. Take a look at what those men, they're sitting out there in the sun waiting to see you, and you're behaving like this. Shame on all of you. And I got up and I walked out the tent.
Listen, yeah, and well said and well spoken, and you know, you certainly have my agreement. And you know, it's amazing. We have to have you on again because there's so many things in this list I want to go through. But one of the things, knowing where you were this weekend, and I don't want to leave this interview without saying you have been a tireless supporter of Vietnam veterans, you know, a group of men and women who came back into this country in the early 1970s that people wanted little or nothing to do with. These were the awful people that fought Nixon's war, and they were the baby killers and all the horrible and undeserved things that went on. What got you started in your life endeavor of providing support to Vietnam vets, you know, once you actually came back into the United States?
Well, I had a terrible period because in '69, my Green Beret husband that I met over in Vietnam and obviously married, he put a gun to his head and killed himself. So after that, I kept real quiet. Then I moved to Midland, Texas, and I got married again to a geologist, oil producer, and some of the people there knew who I was, and they asked me, would I please sing a song at this college campus? Would I do this, that? And I actually put together a girl band.
Wow.
It was fun. And that's kind of how it started. I started getting invited to things. But the interesting thing was I would never talk about it. I was never even talking about Vietnam.
But,
you know, because people were nasty to me. And talking about what happened in the Oakland area, getting onto that airplane, I mean, I found it hard to believe. I mean, I don't think I really believed that they had been spit at and all this stuff until I saw it for myself. I could not believe it. The people, they were like raging animals with so much hate. And of course, there was this big chain link fence. So to me, they all looked like caged wild animals that would be mean to all of these young people coming back. It was shocking, and I'll tell you what, it raises your vigilance when you see that.
Yeah, and it really makes you wonder, as far as quote unquote, you know, who's really being the violent animal here. I think you hit that right on the head. You know, it's and your work with the veterans and being at Rolling Thunder and just, you know, being you, I mean, is just so heart touching, and I love the you know, the postings that you make on Facebook, and I'm always following them, and it really is, you know, when I look at you and your career, like the beach movies, Into the War, and Back Home, and Living Your Life, it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to people, you know, perhaps a little older than me, but it really kind of gives you the whole balance of how the world sort of went from a very simple place to a violent place to a very confused place, and you know, you lived and endured through them all, and I'm just so honored to have you here today. And where, in our closing minutes, if you can believe this, where can our fans you know, follow you and see what you're doing? And we're certain to have you back on here again if you'd be so kind to share some time with us, Chris.
Well, they're sure to go to chrisnoel.com. They can go to my Facebook page, Chris Noel, because I post things all the time. You
do. And I love reading.
There's always things coming out. I have collectors all over the world collecting my photographs. It's fun. They must have file cabinets full by now. and I have a friend who helps me do all that.
And they're beautiful pictures, and I love seeing them. Listen, have a wonderful day. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to spend some time in this humble show. I'm honored and I'm touched, and continued success and health, and we'll talk soon. Thank you again.
If you ever need me around Veterans Day or anything, just give me a holler.
Okay.
And thank you for having me on your show. Goodbye to all your listeners for me.
Goodbye, love. Thank you. Bye. And that was Chris Noel, and I'm speechless and I'm honored. We will be joined by Dave Kaplan of the Bear Museum. It's time for summer and fun. You want a fun sports vacation with some education and some baseball and learn a lot about a lot of different things. Go to the Yogi Berra Museum. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Yogi Berra as well. And it's Tony DeAngelo here, coming into our second hour on Connecticut Morning May 27, 2014, right back after this.